Good, happy Wednesday morning, November 2019. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this morning, so let's begin. First up, more than a dozen taken to hospital after hazardous materials incident in Merrimack. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9.
November is cab month and you're my hidden retractor dealer. Get special cab savings all month long.
Around 3:30 Tuesday afternoon, emergency crews responded to Spraying Systems Company in Merrimack for a situation involving chemicals employees were using.
They were doing a process and something didn't seem right to them. So we sent an engine down to investigate, and it turned out that there was some type of a chemical reaction that they were doing that just wasn't quite up to par what they expected.
According to its website, the company makes spray nozzles and accessories. The Merrimack fire chief says 3 people directly near the chemicals started to feel sick, and then 10 others complained of similar symptoms.
People were starting to get a little bit nausea and not feeling very well.
A hazmat team was then called in, and the building was evacuated.
Material came from overseas, so it was in Spanish, and it took us a little while to decipher the documentation to figure out what the material actually was.
After an hour and a half, crews were able to identify the material. Crews were sent inside to do air monitoring to make sure it was safe. Tonight, the company is responding.
Until we investigate what happened, we're just glad that they're safe and they're at home.
We are told the building is now safe for employees. We're live in Merrimack tonight. Kristen Carosa, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Autopsy released for man dead in Hillsborough. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9. Also, AG's office labels death suspicious, calls incident isolated.
Burst out the door when it matters most. For more than a decade, he's been right there, everywhere. And when American jobs are on the line, he leads the charge. ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
It was a horrific discovery Sunday morning. A father found dead inside a Hillsborough apartment along with his 4-month-old daughter. Now the Attorney General's office says autopsies show 39-year-old Miles Deuce died from a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. His death ruled a suicide, but the cause of baby Mackenzie's death is still pending.
It's not uncommon in death cases, particularly those involving infants, for further testing and studies to be done in order to determine cause and manner of death.
Investigators say toxicology will be part of those tests. Results could take several weeks. And at this time, investigators offer no possible motive, no circumstances surrounding the deaths of the father and baby.
We don't expect there to be any additional information to provide until we hear about the further studies and testing that will be done for Mackenzie Deuce.
Tonight, the Attorney General's office is asking anyone with information about the circumstances surrounding these deaths to reach out to state police. Tom?
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Nashua police accuse man of assaulting another man with sharp object. Hector Olivo Ontario faces 9 counts of first-degree assault. Let's take a listen to the video from WR News 9.
November is cab month at You're My Hidden Tractor Dealer. Get special cab savings.
And a man facing several charges in connection to an alleged assault on Hanover Street in Nashua. Police say 28-year-old Hector Olivio Quintero assaulted another man with a sharp object yesterday. That man expected to recover. He was arrested a short time later. His charges include 9 counts of first-degree assault.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Elevated PFOA levels detected in water at Kearsarge Regional Middle School. All area schools to undergo water testing, officials say. Let's take a listen to the video from WR News 9, Tim Calorie.
November is cab month at You're My Hidden Tractor Dealer. Get special cab savings all month.
It was a faucet in the nurse's office of Kearsarge Regional Middle School that tested positive for elevated levels of a chemical known as perfluoric octanoic acid, or PFOA, which for years was used to manufacture certain products like nonstick coatings and waterproof materials.
Part of their fourth quarter sampling, Kearsarge Middle School had a result of 153 parts per trillion for PFOA.
That's well above the new 12 parts per trillion limit set by the state back in September because of the long-term health effects of PFOAs.
The school system is conducting confirmation sampling so that we can rule out any sort of errors with the laboratory sampling that occurred.
A process that could take weeks. In the meantime, the district is not taking any chances.
I made a plan for this morning to shut down all the water fountains and stop using the water in the school.
Bottled water is now being used for drinking and cooking.
The guidance from the department is that it's not an emergency. It is certainly not something we have to take immediate action, but we felt it's better safe than sorry.
A move that is getting applause from parents.
I think you can never be too careful. I'm happy about it, and it sounds like they took care of the problem with bringing in water and informing us, so I feel good about it.
And right now, it's unclear as to what may be behind these elevated levels. State officials say that will have to be investigated. Reporting in Concord, I'm Tim Calorie, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. St. Anselm poll, Buttigieg surges to 10% point lead over Biden. Warren in New Hampshire. Support for South Bend mayor jumps by 15% point since September poll of Democrat primary voters. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9.
Someone gets a job that wouldn't have had it otherwise. Someone gets a house that wouldn't have had it otherwise. Some family has a place to take their children for preschool that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Our donors like that they help people help themselves.
Everyone's going to react very calmly to this poll on social media because it shows a new frontrunner here in New Hampshire. Take a look at the top 4 in this poll, which was conducted from November 13th to the 18th. It surveyed 512 registered voters, with 255 of them likely Democratic voters, and among that group it features a margin of error of 6.1%. In the lead in this poll is Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, with 25%. Behind him and tied are Joe Biden with 15%, Elizabeth Warren with 15%, and then Bernie Sanders at 9%. The next tier down, Amy Klobuchar is at 6%. That's a 3% boost for her since September. Tom Steyer's at 5%, and then Tulsi Gabbard and Cory Booker are at 3%. Then it's Andrew Yang at 2%, and Kamala Harris, who has abandoned her New Hampshire campaign to go all in on Iowa, falling to 1%. That's a 4% decrease for her from September. One big thing to keep in mind here, this poll shows only 36% of likely Democratic voters are firm in their choice of candidate. That figure is down from 43% in September. When it comes to who would be the strongest Democratic nominee against President Donald Trump, it is Joe Biden by a mile. 41% believe he would be the strongest, while Pete Buttigieg is a distant second at 11%. But Neil Levesque of the New Hampshire Institute of Politics says the headline right now is the South Bend mayor's apparent surge.
He's up 15 points since September, which is a very dramatic swing in such a tight race with so many candidates.
There are other candidates jumping into the race or considering entering the race at this point, but in this poll, voters are having none of it. 77% of those surveyed would tell Michael Bloomberg not to run. 62% think Deval Patrick should not have jumped into the race. And Hillary Clinton, who recently said she's under, quote, enormous pressure to think about running again, well, apparently none of that pressure is coming from the Granite State, as 91% of those surveyed said it would be a bad idea for her to enter the race. In the studio, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And sorry about that. Hold on. Dow features point to a lower open. U.S. stocks were lower Wednesday morning. 9 people facing charges in Ohio University fraternity death. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
The death of an 18-year-old fraternity pledge in Ohio University last year. Tonight, 9 people are now facing charges related to alleged hazing at an off-campus house. Here's Gio Benitez.
Tonight, 9 men, most of them fraternity members, are facing serious charges following the 2018 death of Ohio University freshman pledge Colin Wyant. One of them charged with reckless homicide, another involuntary manslaughter. Many of the other charges range from drug trafficking to hazing. Wyant was found unconscious last November at an off-campus house associated with the Sigma Pi fraternity.
Hello, I think my friend drank a little too much.
Okay, is he responsive?
He was, and then he's kind of laid back, started passing out.
In a wrongful death lawsuit, the Wyant family alleges Colin was subjected to extensive hazing that included being beaten with a belt and being provided with and forced to take drugs that included nitrous oxide, which a coroner ruled ultimately killed him. The fraternity reportedly denies responsibility for the alleged hazing death. Tonight, Wyant's parents reacting to those criminal charges.
It was necessary because it's the only way we're going to drive change to save lives, but also that there are no winners here.
His death is systemic of this larger scale problem.
And David, at least one of the men charged will be arraigned tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Sigma Pi fraternity has been expelled from Ohio University, and other fraternities on that same campus are also under investigation for separate hazing allegations. David.
All right, Gio Benitez reporting. Gio, thanks.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. MSNBC, the Washington Post debate promo. It is going to be airing tonight on NBC News and MSNBC News. Let's take a look at the promo.
With a vision. Moderators Rachel Maddow, Andrea Mitchell, Kristen Welker, and the Washington Post's Ashley Parker ask, what will you do? How will you do it? The next Democratic debate, Wednesday at 9 on MSNBC.
Okay, and there you go. Tonight at 9 on MSNBC. And that is it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.